Hey, what's up, dudes and dudettes? It's Mr. Jude here. This tutorial is going to talk about how to make something animate in the background while your main animation is going on. We're going to use loops to do that. So we have our circle man here in the bottom left-hand corner, and while he's going to grapple up and navigate this course, I'd like to put a flagpole here to kind of show that that's the destination he's going to. And I want that flagpole to animate, just have the flag kind of waving in the wind as he's traveling over there the whole time. So to do this, we're going to make a new layer, and we're going to call it flagpole. And then I'm going to have to draw my flagpole. So I'm going to zoom in about 400%, hit H on my keyboard to get my hand tool, and when you do that, obviously the icon changes to a hand. And you can click and, well, if you just regular click, and you can drag your hand to the part that you want to draw. And so I'm going to draw it on this platform here. Hit B to get to my brush tool, and then I'll change my brush size by hitting the bracket keys. If you forget where those are, it's to the right of the P key on your keyboard. So the left bracket makes it smaller, the right bracket makes it bigger. I'm going to choose about that size. Change my color to something dark, so that's a good pull color, I think. And now I'm going to get my brush tool ready, and holding shift on my keyboard, I'm going to just draw straight down. And because I'm holding shift, it's going to make it a perfectly straight line. I like that. That looks good. And then I'm going to go up to probably the top of my pole and draw a ball at the top there. Yeah, it looks all right. All right, now I'm going to hit V on my keyboard to get my selection tool and click on that. And right click and choose convert to symbol. F8 is the shortcut for that. If you don't, the way I'm recording, I'm not sure if this is going to show up or not. But it asks for the name of the symbol, and I'm just going to call it flag. Make it the type should be graphic, and hit OK. And now you'll see here on the right side of my library menu, we have a flag. So if I basically, all my layers here, this is my main scene, and I can animate all of my kind of elements of my scene on this timeline. But if I double click a symbol, in this case my flagpole, now I'm just seeing the timeline of the flag. And so what we're going to do is animate a loop. We're going to make a 6-frame loop here in the flagpole symbol, and then when we go back to the scene, this loop, the 6-frame loop, will play continuously while Circle Man's kind of doing his thing. So I'm going to double click flagpole again to get into my symbol. And I actually want to make this pole its own layer. And then I'm going to make another layer for the flag. And the reason I'm going to do that is so that I can put my flag underneath the pole, and you'll kind of understand in a moment why that makes sense. But if the flag's underneath it, that means that kind of the parts won't show underneath. It will just look a little cleaner. Now I said I'm going to make this a 6-frame cycle, so I'm just going to go over to frame 6, hit F6 to create a new keyframe, and now the pole should appear there for all 6 frames. And what I'm going to do is hand draw the flag for each of these 6 frames. So I'm going to get my brush tool, B for brush, and let's choose a color. Let's do yellow. And I'm going to change the size a little bit of that brush. Yeah, that looks good. Alright, so when I'm drawing my flag as it's animating, I think it's really a square. See, oops. See, I was able to draw. This is why I like having, if I want to draw a flag like this, and I don't have to be too careful with how I draw on the left side of it, because the pole will actually cover it up. So let's give this another try again. All right, so my flagpole, or the flag, I kind of want to animate like it has almost like a wave on an ocean, right? Kind of dips down, goes up, and goes down, and then the bottom part of it should kind of mirror the same shape, like that. And there's our flag. Alright, now if I want, I could just fill this. I have to kind of draw a line here on the end. And that's created this hollow shape in the middle. And if I'm lazy, which I am, I can get my paint bucket tool and just fill that in with yellow. And then go back to my brush tool. There we go. And now I can go over one frame and I can hit F7, which creates a new blank keyframe. And then I'll turn my onion skinning on here, and now I can see the shape of the flag. So to animate a flag, what we're going to do here is kind of look at the crest. The crest would be the highest part, and we're going to animate it slowly, moving from the left to the right, and then it should loop back. So it's going to take us 5 frames essentially to get from here to have this crest go to the end, and then we'll start again that way. All right, so let's say that. So this dip is going to be a little, it's kind of like almost this mini crest, comes back down, loops up here, and then goes there. All right, so same idea. This is now going to be a little bit lower. This is going to be a little bit higher. Something like that. Draw that down. Okay, now I'm actually not going to fill that in because I feel like the onion skinning will be a little bit easier for me to understand if I just keep it on the outline. All right, hit F7 to make a new blank keyframe. And now the same idea, this is going to be a little higher, come down up here, something like that. Oops. That's not good either. Again, never be afraid to draw, undo, draw, undo. It's kind of a constant process. And you can be real careful when you draw. You don't have to draw real fast. All right, so now you can kind of see that we used to have our crest was in the middle, and now we have 2 crests, one on the left and one on the right. So now I'm going to kind of focus on this lower crest and get this lower crest moving out. And by the time this lower crest hits this right edge, that really should be our loop. So we'll go over to our next keyframe, hit F7. All right, animating this crest kind of coming in. This is kind of taking longer to get out. There we go. All right, and again, I'm just going to draw this edge because I'm going to fill it in later. But I just like working with the outlines first for my onion skinning. It reads easier to me. Now there is another way to do that. You can actually click this onion skin outlines, and it will just use the outlines of your solid shape. So that's another way to do it. But I'll just keep the solid one for now. All right, and this one's actually a little tricky because this little trough comes down, then it goes up. Now it's coming down to there. Okay. Same idea, kind of missed that step. Comes up there, comes down. That's a little wonky, but let's see what that looks like before I change it there. Alright, and then this will be the last one. Now, the trick will be kind of matching these up. I don't want it to be quite exact yet. Although, you know what? Maybe this is only a 5 framer, because right now it's going to be about where it is. Alright, so let's fill this in. Alright, so I'm going to go over to frame 2, turn my onion skinning off so I can actually tell what I'm doing. Fill that in. My next frame, fill it in. My next frame, fill it in. And my last frame, and fill that in. And then what I'm going to do is actually just delete this keyframe. There. I'm going to turn on looping. and make that just the 5. Hit enter to kind of watch. And now it looks like the flag's kind of flying there, which I really like. Now that's pretty fast, right? I mean, that's like super speed wind. So what we could do is slow that down, and to do that, we'll just kind of, if I could click here. All right, so what I'm going to do is make this 10 frames long instead of 5, basically double the time that it takes to animate. So I'm going to select my pull frame on 5, going to click it and drag it out to frame 10. All right, so now that pull should be from frames 1 to 10. And then I'm going to click my last frame here, click and drag it out to frame 10. I'm just going to have to basically click and drag these out manually to make each of them last 2 frames. And I see what I did, I didn't make that last 2 frames, so I gotta drag these over one. Okay, so basically each drawing of the yellow flag is lasting 2 frames, so I've literally animated on 2s. I'll hit return and watch that, and that's a slower, and still smooth enough, I think, to work for us. Okay, so I'll hit enter again. Now again, we animated in our flag symbol, so if I go over to my scene and click this, all right, and I'm going to change the to fit to window. All right, now if I click flagpole, I go over to properties, and I click on the symbol here. You'll notice that there's a menu called looping and options loop. Now I can make, what it's asking me to do is inside our flagpole symbol, obviously we have 10 frames of animation. It's asking, do I want to loop that 10 frames? Do I just want to play it once? In other words, play the 10 frames and then after that pause on the last frame, or just have one single frame hold for the entire animation. Now if you remember, we use the single frame part for the parts of our character rig. So we're going to pick loop, and now if our animation, say we made this animation 2 seconds, I'll click and drag down here and then hit F6, and what that did is draw the same frame all the way out for 2 seconds. Make sure my loop, in fact I can turn loop off. Now if I hit return, what should happen is my flag is going to loop, and it's going to animate for that 2 seconds. So rather than have to redraw or copy all those frames over and over again for the length of my entire animation, now we just have this looping animation in the background. So now that you know those basics, you can do some pretty cool things. You can animate like balls of lava animating and popping at the top. You can animate clouds coming from left to right, and basically they're just looping through this cycle. And if you do it right, the viewers of your animation aren't even going to notice it. Now obviously the flag one, they'll probably know that's a loop, but I could also animate some variations there. If I wanted, like say after every 5 cycles of that, maybe there's a slight variation, just to kind of create some visual interest. But really that's real basic. Same idea if you wanted to animate a bird flying through the air, you could just animate the 6 frames of the bird, and then have it kind of fly through the air. Because what's neat is now this flagpole here, I can go to my frame at the end of my 2 seconds, drag my flag kind of over here. Alright, so at second 2 my flag's here, at second 1 it's over here. Now I can kind of click in the middle, create a classic tween, and now we have a flag that's literally moving from that platform to the other, but you'll notice the internal animation is still going. So that's how we can, I mean, I really love that because it's, again, an animation within an animation. And we're going to use those tricks for Circle Man as well, so that you know, we can animate his limbs and eyes and everything, but then we can also tween him as he moves through the obstacle course. I don't have to move his left leg individually and his right leg individually. I can move his entire body at once, as he goes through the course, but animate his arms separately. Alright, so that does it for this tutorial. Again, that's a looping animation inside of a symbol, and we'll see you next time.